I've been really thinking about how the unusual way in which the Hamas leader was recently killed, and he was killed in an unusual way, and he had been sought after a long time for his evil, oppressive deeds. And he had eluded all of the people going after him, and then suddenly he randomly got killed when he wasn't the intended target, and everyone was very surprised. And it made me remember the scripture in the Bible where another wicked king, Ahab, had been killed, and it's very similar in that it was an unusual death, and it was sort of a fluke in the way that it took place. And Ahab oppressed the people of Israel from within. He was the king. He was a wicked king. And this Hamas leader has been oppressing Israel from without. And both wicked leaders and both seem to be untouchable, and both met their demise in very unusual ways. And so it had been prophesied by the prophet Elijah how King Ahab would die, that he would die, and that dogs would lick up his blood. And that was in 862 BC. Fast forward 11 years, and he met his demise. And I'd like to read and pick up on this, and you can read all of this account within 1 Kings 21 and 22 primarily. And I'm going to pick up and read a little piece out of 1 Kings 22. Now 3 years passed without war between Syria and Israel. Okay, so there had been recent wars between Israel and Syria, and there was a piece of land that belonged to Israel, but the king Ahab hesitated to go in and take it. He was a little intimidated by the king of Syria. So he enlists Jehoshaphat, who is the king of Judah, and he agrees to go in battle with him against Syria. And so fast forward, and they call in the prophets. The prophets are all just going to say exactly what the king wants to hear, except for one named Micaiah. And I'm going to read this piece to you about his actual prophecy, the true prophecy he had for this battle and for this King Ahab. And I'll pick up in verse 19. Then Micaiah said, "Therefore hear the word of the Lord. I saw the Lord sitting on his throne, and all the host of heaven standing by on his right hand and on his left. And the Lord said, Who will persuade Ahab to go up, that he may fall at Ramoth Gilead?" So one spoke in this manner, and another spoke in that manner. Then a spirit came forward and stood before the Lord and said, "I will persuade him." The Lord said to him, "In what way?" He said, "I will go out and be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets." And the Lord said, "You shall persuade him and also prevail. Go out and do so. Therefore, look, the Lord has put a lying spirit in the mouth of all these prophets of yours, and the Lord has declared disaster against you." And of course, we know that King Ahab didn't put any merit in this prophet, because he had all of these other prophets over here telling him, "You're going to have a victory." And then he had this one over here saying, "You're going to be defeated and you're going to meet your demise." And guess who he believed? The lion spirits. And so fast forward, and this is what I found quite interesting. So the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, went up to Ramoth Gilead. And the king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, I will disguise myself and go into battle, but you put on your robes. So the king of Israel disguised himself and went into battle. So he was disguised. Now the king of Syria had commanded the 32 captains of his chariots, saying, Fight with no one, small or great, but only with the king of Israel. So it was, when the captains of the chariots saw Jehoshaphat, that they said, Surely it is the king of Israel. Therefore they turned aside to fight against him. And Jehoshaphat cried out. And it happened, when the captains of the chariots saw that it was not the king of Israel, they turned back from pursuing him. Now a certain man drew a bow at random and struck the king of Israel between the joints of his armor. So he said to the driver of his chariot, Turn around and take me out of the battle, for I am wounded. The battle increased that day, and the king was propped up in his chariot facing the Syrians and died at evening. The blood ran out from the wound onto the floor of the chariot. Then, as the sun was going down, a shout went throughout the army, saying, Every man to his city and every man to his own country. So the king died and was brought to Samaria, and they buried the king in Samaria. Then someone washed the chariot at a pool in Samaria, and the dogs licked up the blood while the harlots bathed, according to the word of the Lord, which he had spoken. So there's so many elements to this, but the similarity is pretty amazing, because this was a wicked ruler oppressing from within the people of Israel. And this Hamas leader that was recently killed as a wicked leader oppressing Israel from without. And both seemed untouchable, and both met their demise in a very unusual way. And my point to this is that you cannot escape God. When he is ready to enact his justice upon you, you cannot escape. You cannot hide. You cannot disguise and be hidden from God. There's nothing you can do when he is ready to act. And these people, these men, these wicked leaders were oppressing God's chosen people, and God will not stand for that. He will allow it for a time, but he will not stand for that. And the element of the lying spirit really left out at me also, because I've been, for some time now, I have been researching about deception and lying spirits, and literally the prophets who were supposed to be from God were lying, and God was allowing them to lie, but his purpose prevailed. He was only allowing them to do this and to have success for his plan to prevail. So the enemy's plan can never supersede God's plan. Everything that the enemy does is for God's purpose. Everything he allows is for his own purpose. And the enemy has no authority or power or victory over God.